You've been taught that freedom means choice, that you're free because you can think, choose, and believe. But what if that very freedom was part of the illusion? What if the thoughts within your mind, the emotions that stir your chest, even the desires that move you, were never truly yours? For ages, mystics revealed that ignorance isn't mere blindness. It's the very force that keeps humanity asleep. They spoke of the Archons, symbols of illusion, architects of deception, weaving unseen patterns of thought that convince you the cage is the sky and the chain your own reflection. Yet hidden through centuries was a truth sharp enough to pierce illusion and shatter the inversion itself. The Archons are not gods, but distortions of perception. Their power lies in our forgetting. Their greatest fear is that you'll finally remember, not just what they signify, but who you truly are. The Gnostics, seekers of divine knowing, uncovered something profound. They saw that the human soul carries a divine resonance the Archons can never counterfeit. A spark of pure, uncreated light. Buried within their teachings was a sacred method of seeing, a way to dissolve the Archons' grip entirely. It wasn't about faith or worship, but awakening awareness itself, remembering what you are beneath the spell of illusion. This isn't just another tale of ancient beings or lost scrolls. What you're about to uncover is the method the Archons dread most, the inner science of freeing perception. In this revelation, we'll explore what these forces truly embody, how they shape the human mind, and why your focus and emotion are their only lifeblood. We'll enter forgotten Gnostic texts that unveil how to pierce the Archon's illusion, and how awareness itself becomes the ultimate act of liberation. By the end, you won't just see why this wisdom was buried. You'll witness what unfolds when illusion collapses and the inner light reawakens. To grasp the method the Archons fear most, we must journey before religion, before dogma, before history was rewritten to obscure the deeper truth. It begins in the first centuries after Christ, when secret seekers gathered in hidden caves and silent deserts, away from the sanctioned orders of the age. They called themselves Gnostic, those who know. Their wisdom wasn't learned, it was remembered. They believed the material realm was not truth, but a veil, a distortion born of an imperfect creator, the Demiurge, or Yaldabaoth. This being, and the powers serving him, the Archons, were not destroyers but cosmic impostors posing as gods, convincing souls that the world of suffering and fear was all that existed. To the Gnostics, creation was a vast play between realms of light and the counterfeit world of illusion, and humanity stood between them, divine in origin. Still dreaming within a sleep shaped by lesser powers, the soul wanders the labyrinth of illusion. In the Gospel of Mary, the Savior tells his followers that matter gives rise to a passion unmatched, a fever born when the soul forgets its source. The Archons, those engineers of distraction, amplify this fire, weaving fear and desire into threads so subtle that even the wise become ensnared. Yet through the fog, the Savior's words pierce like light. Be courageous, for courage, he said, is the soul's anchor amid the storms of matter. Here lies the danger and the reason this teaching was buried. The Gnostics did not teach blind belief or obedience to outer power. They spoke of direct revelation, that within each person burns a fragment of the divine source, a spark of pure origin. To awaken that spark is to dissolve the Archon's hold, for once you recall your birthright in light, illusion loses its grip. Imagine what that truly means. If every human held an incorruptible link to the divine, no priest, ruler, or institution could claim dominion over the path to God. That single truth was enough to threaten empires. So the knowledge was hidden. The teachers hunted, and by the 4th century, the Gnostic voice was nearly erased, but not entirely. In 1945, beneath the sands of Nag Hammadi, Egypt, a sealed jar was uncovered, a library buried for 16 centuries. Within it lay the Gospel of Thomas, the Apocryphon of John, the Sophia of Jesus Christ, texts containing fragments of a cosmic map, a guide to transcend the Archon's illusion. They spoke of how these forces draw vitality from human confusion and fear, how they mirror thought and emotion to keep awareness trapped in distraction. And they revealed the way beyond, not by battle, but by remembrance, not memory as the mind recalls, but a mystical recognition, a flash of knowing that cuts through the veil and reunites you with the source. You've felt it before, those moments when you hear something and cannot explain why, yet know it's true. That is inner knowing, the awakening of your divine spark. And that awakening is what the Archons dread most, because once true sight returns, it not only dissolves the architecture of deception, it transforms the very lens of reality. For if the Archons fear anything, it is not rebellion, ritual, or weapon, it is clarity and remembrance. For clarity burns not only through their shadow, but through the veil that blinds your own perception. To the Gnostics, the Archons were never monsters in the cosmos, but distortions in consciousness, echoes born when divine light fragmented into matter. They dwell in unseen layers of thought and feeling, mere reflections without essence, sustained only by awareness that has forgotten itself. What feeds them? Your fear, your attention, your unguarded reaction to illusion. The Archons rule through imitation, copying reality, yet forever devoid of the living spark of the divine, masters of counterfeit light. When you feel the surge of fear, anger, judgment, or despair, it isn't always your emotion. It is the archonic current, tugging at the threads of the psyche, feeding on the energy your reaction releases. They whisper through collective belief, through media, through systems, through endless conflict. The Gospel of Mary calls this the kingdom of the flesh, realm where false powers stir desire and confusion until the soul forgets its own radiance. These forces are not chaotic, they are intentional distortions, echoes of the Archons' imitation of creation itself. They wear masks of authority and certainty, disguising limitation as logic, distraction as progress. Their influence is not enforced by strength, but by the quiet erosion of memory. For when you forget what you are, pure, divine awareness unbound by form, you drift back into their dream. Yet the Gnostics uncovered a flaw in their design. The Archons cannot create. They can only mimic. They cannot generate light, only reflect it, twist it, invert it, and drain it. Just as they did with the teachings of Jesus. That means each time you remember the origin of your light, their illusion falters. Every breath taken in awareness, every thought observed without reaction, withdraws the energy that sustains them. In the Apocryphon of John, the Savior tells John that humanity was born from a spark of the divine realm, hidden deep within matter so the Archons could never destroy it. It was planted as a safeguard, a living code that cannot be erased. That code is awareness itself. You feel it when you rise beyond thought's grip, that quiet, alert stillness behind the noise. That is the real you. Awareness cannot be controlled, owned, or consumed. It simply is. The Gnostics taught that when the Archons sought to enslave the soul, they used fear as the key. But when a human turned inward, faced fear with stillness and shone awareness upon the darkness, the illusion dissolved, like smoke vanishing in sunlight. This was the Gnostic method, not worship, but perception shifting, seeing through, not fighting against, recognizing that darkness holds power only while unseen. This is why the Archons draw life from fear, because fear keeps your gaze outward, lost in the maze of their false world. Yet the instant you turn inward, something awakens. The Gnostics called it anamnesis, the sacred act of remembering. When you remember, shadows lose substance. You stop fueling illusion, and the Archons, starved of attention, lose their hold. They dread this remembrance above all, because it doesn't just strip their power, it renders them irrelevant. So the question becomes, how do you sustain remembrance in a world built to make you forget? How do you hold awareness amid chaos, deceit, and fear? The answer is not escape, but transmutation, turning every fragment of darkness into light. For according to the ancient texts, the Archons are not defeated by violence but by recognition. And yet, humanity has spent ages fighting illusions instead of seeing through them. That is how the Archons have ruled for so long. They do not need chains or armies to enslave humanity, only a mind divided against itself. Every argument, every outrage to a new story, every judgment, every division is a subtle offering of energy to their pattern of control. In the Hypostasis of the Archons, the Gnostics described these forces as powers ruling over the mind, feeding on confusion, and delighting in chaos. They imitate reality, project images, stir emotion. They want you reactive, divided, and asleep. The ancient Gnostics spoke of 7 powers binding the soul, not demons, but states of consciousness: darkness, desire, ignorance, the allure of death, the pull of the flesh, false wisdom, and wrathful pride. Each whispers, "This is who you are." But they lie. Freedom is not found in fighting them, but in seeing through them, allowing awareness to outshine the shadow. Hidden within that same text lies their weakness, a truth so simple it borders on cosmic revelation. They cannot stand before the vision of the light. And this light is not a mystical beam from above. It is awareness itself, pure, unclouded consciousness that looks upon illusion without fear. When manipulation is seen for what it is, its energy collapses. Darkness has no power of its own. It is merely the absence of light. And the instant light appears, darkness ceases to exist. That act of clear seeing is the Gnostic method. Illumination through recognition, not battle with the lie. That's why Jesus says in the Gospel of Thomas, "When you make the two one, when the inner and the outer are the same, then you will enter the kingdom." The Gnostics were not waiting for heaven after death. They were discovering it within consciousness itself. The kingdom was not a place, but a state of awareness, untouched by illusion. And that awareness, your awareness, is the one realm the Archons cannot reach. Their influence depends on polarity. They thrive when you hate them, fear them, or worship them. But when you recognize them as part of a dream, a distortion within the vast field of consciousness, they lose their substance. That recognition is your power. It's why the ancient teachers called the world Maya, the illusion of separation. The world itself is not false, but perception becomes clouded. The Archons whisper, "This is all there is. You are small. You are powerless. But you are not. You are the awareness that perceives even the whisper. You are the one who sees." And this remembrance is what the Archons fear most, that you might stop fighting shadows and start shining light. Because the moment you do, their architecture of illusion begins to crumble. The systems they built, the collective narratives, the social conditioning, even your inner critic, all begin to lose their grip. They feed on identification, but awareness severs that cord. The Gnostics called this gnosis, not belief, but direct knowing. It cannot be taught. It must be experienced. It is the silent realization that nothing external has power over your inner state. For them, salvation was not about being rescued by another, but awakening to the divine presence already within, the living current of Source. When that connection is felt, even for a moment, you become untouchable. The Archons may still exist, but they can no longer rule you because you no longer dream their dream. You awaken within it, and that awakening is not just liberation, it is remembrance itself. The moment the Archons fear most, the Gnostics never intended for their wisdom to remain trapped in philosophy or twisted into false doctrines. They called it living knowledge, truth that breathes, moves, and awakens only through direct experience. So, how do you bring this understanding into life? How do you dissolve the Archon's grip in this very moment? The first step of inner alchemy is both the simplest and the most demanding. See, not with the eyes, but with awareness itself. Each thought that rises, each feeling that stirs within you, and just notice. Don't resist it, don't pursue it, don't label it as good or bad, simply witness. This act of seeing is not passive, it's the Gnostic blade. Every time you observe, without identification, you reclaim the energy that once fueled illusion. The Archons feed on unconscious reaction. Awareness severs their line. Remember the Savior's words to Mary, "Be courageous before the shifting forms of nature. Courage is not defiance, it is clarity held in stillness. True courage, in the Gnostic sense, means standing before every shadow of thought and saying, "You hold no power but that which I give you." When fear surfaces, pause. Feel its location in your body. Do not resist. Illuminate. Whisper inwardly, "I see you." That single sentence dissolves illusion faster than 1,000 prayers. For when you face fear without falling into it, distortion collapses. The Gnostics called this remembering the light. It's not about fleeing the world, and it's about waking up within it. When darkness is met with awareness, the battlefield transforms into a sanctuary. Then, something wondrous emerges. Even pain, confusion, and shadow reveal themselves as gateways back to the source. Every emotion becomes sacred fuel for awakening. Throughout the day, notice the subtle moments you lose presence. When anger grips, when distraction pulls, when noise drowns your stillness. Each signal whispers, energy is being lost here. Don't condemn it, use it. Return to stillness, return to light. This is the true Gnostic ritual. No temples, no incense, no chants required. The altar is within awareness. The prayer is your attention. And from that awareness flows a power unshaken, compassion. When fear is no longer fed, love begins to radiate. Not sentimental love, but luminous understanding. That frequency cannot be imitated by illusion. It cannot survive where love dwells. So practice daily. See the illusion. Remember the one who watches. Choose light, again and again. You'll feel the shift. Subtle first, then undeniable. What once drained you loses weight. The world's noise softens, and a quiet strength rises, not from outside, but from the spark within. That is Gnosis, in motion. The very thing the Archons dread, a soul that remembers. The Archons were never gods, merely echoes, distortions of forgotten light. They feed on blindness yet tremble before remembrance. Their power exists only in darkness. The instant you turn toward your inner light, their structure crumbles. You don't conquer them by war. You dissolve them by remembering who you are. For when you awaken to the source within, no illusion can touch you. Not false light, not fear, not the weight of the past. This is the ancient secret. You were never a prisoner. The cage was thought, and the key has always been awareness. Every time you choose stillness over fear, truth over confusion, awareness over reaction, you reclaim your divine inheritance. This is the Gnostic revolution, not of swords, but of consciousness. Each awakening within the dream weakens the collective illusion. Every remembering adds light to the whole, and that ripple of remembrance is what they fear most. Tonight, before sleep, close your eyes. Breathe. Whisper, "I remember the light." Feel it, beneath thought, beneath emotion, silent, eternal, untouched. That is the divine spark the Gnostics sought to preserve. The Archons want you distracted, divided, afraid. But now you see their pattern. Awareness ends it. You've taken the first step toward what they called pleroma, the fullness beyond illusion. Once seen, you cannot return to sleep. Remember, the truth is not found. It awakens. And when it does, you won't need logic or proof. You'll simply know.